Welcome to the Pink Room, a space for real talk by real women about the real issues of our day.
As minorities, we're not only your day laborers. We're not only the ones that clean your houses or your hotels, right? We are human beings that have capacity to be part of every area of this country.
The strategy needs to be to get into these political offices.
Every election, every seat, every office.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Teresa, if I would just like to say, I don't consider myself a minority. If the world wants to see us as minorities, because we are actually the majority, but if they want to see us as minorities, then call us the super minority.
People started to post some microaggressions that they were experiencing from their professors.
Wow.
And hearing so many perspectives, they're like, you have to do something. If I have the resource, I'll do well as well. I'll do well just as well as others do. Don't make things easier for me. I just want the resource. That's all. And I think that's the misconception, that they think that we want handouts. We don't want handouts. We just want what the others get. That's it. Give us what you give others, and we will do just as well.
Excellent. Ashley.
As long as you can ensure that one group of people in this country have access to good education,
right,
another group does not have access to adequate education, right, you basically guarantee that the group that has less access to good education, then remain the sickest people in our system. And so you have the conflation of several policies, or the absence of policies, that basically create and sustain the perfect storm in this country.
That's not where your affirmation is going to come from.
Right.
Humans fail us all the time. It is not in someone else. You can't find in someone else what you cannot find first within yourself. What entryways were there for someone else to come in and feed you false narratives? You have to build up those fortresses first. And when I say fortresses, I don't mean walls to block people out. I mean confidence within yourself to know that you can look in the mirror and say to the mirror, Latoya, you're loved. I love you. I love you. You are beautiful.
Start your watch parties. Cast the Pink Room on your HD TVs. Post your comments in the chat. This space is yours too.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Pink Room. It's so exciting to be here. Here we have the co-hostesses, Shonda and Tricia.
Hi, everyone.
We have a great topic tonight. Well, all the topics are great to me, but this one is interesting because we're talking about social media, right? And our well-being and what we need to do to, I guess, protect ourselves a little bit from some of the issues in social media. So that should be interesting. We want to start with our check-in. And our check-in for today, we're asking you to share with us your self-care playlist. We want you to share the name or the names of a song or songs or artists that bring you joy. So we want you to dig deep. What is it that you play when you want to feel pepped up, revved up? What is it that when you hear it, it makes you feel so much joy? So we're going to ask you to type that in the chat while Shonda and Tricia share with us what their artist or song of joy is.
Hey, I like this self-care. I wish you all could hear it now. My song right now that I'm playing is Eugene King's Pretty Brown Skin. If you get the chance, go listen to Eugene King, spelled with 2 I's, Pretty Brown Skin.
So I don't have one. It's impossible. I actually was almost late today to church because I had to put a Sabbath flow playlist together for the ride because I needed to go back. So today's playlist had Fred Hammond's Please Don't Pass Me By. And there's a certain, my kids know, there are like certain parts of a song that I will play the entire song just for that one part. And in this song is where they kind of do a little, I don't know, run in the middle of a chorus. But just listening to those, special moments in the middle of songs kind of hidden away, those are the things that bring me joy. So Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, Anthony Brown, Mary Mary when they were Mary Mary, not now that they split apart. Nicole Simone, any type of contemporary gospel music that is upbeat and that has surprises, that's what I like. I see I have some, Mary Mary, Israel and New Breed, Yep.
Yeah, we have Mary Mary, we have Alison Sharon, unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield, Tamar, Israel, and New Breed. Yeah, Israel and New Breed are really good. Even though I heard Israel retired or is no longer going to do some music, I'm not sure. I don't know what the story is on that. Tamar could probably tell us. Listen, I want to thank my parents for that, because even though my father was a minister, we were always exposed to all type of music. So in my house, it was never like, you can only listen to church music. Nah. We heard a variety of stuff. And I think that really allowed us, and perhaps part of it was too because we were living in all these different places. It allowed me to explore music in so many ways. So I am now I'm not now. It's been, I think, pandemic time. One of my students kind of tuned me into this, and I'm now looking a lot into Afro-Colombian music. They have some great artists. Like, I'm like amazed. Like, I follow them. There is Herencia Timbiquí. There's Chopwick Town. I mean, I like really social justice movement songs about what they're going through in their particular areas of Colombia, because most of them live on the coast, very separate, and the areas are impoverished areas. So singing to that reality. So I'd like to show, I'm pausing here to share that Fiona is sharing that she likes Jesus Take the Wheel, reminds her that she's never in control when she allows Jesus to take the wheel in her life. Yes. So I like to listen to them, but there's a particular young Colombian artist coming up. That kid could probably be she could not be more than 12. I've shared some of her stuff on my Facebook page. Her name is Frailin. She went into the children's She went into the children's competition for The Voice in Colombia, and although she did not win, she was really the favorite. She has been consistently posting, like every week or so. She would have her brother play something, and she would. That child is, I think, her expressions are amazing. She sings like an old soul. But then one day she shared that her grandmother, she shared a song sing with her grandmother, and my husband was like, that's where she got that from. Really deep, really soulful singing. Her grandmother used to sing to her, and her voice is not childlike at all. You listen to her sing, she sounds like a grown woman, but her expressions, even if you don't speak the language, when you see her sing, you're like, whoa, what is this kid singing? And I like it because it's a young Black girl in Colombia, in an area where people would probably not think much about, and being a Black young girl, really standing in that talent. So Frailin, shout outs to her. I'm enjoying everything that she puts out there. So that's our self-care. And we're still asking our
Norca Shonda asked,
how does she spell her name?
Yes, Fraily. And actually, let me write it here, Frailin. And she has a lot of posts on Facebook. You can follow her page, Frailin. Just amazing. It's just amazing. She does. I think the child is extremely gifted. Um, and yeah, you follow her page on Facebook, you're going to be like, what? How old is this kid? So yeah, so I'm glad, music is so important for and Tricia is a musician. She has it hidden, but I know. Tricia is a musician. Tricia plays the piano. Tricia is a musician. So Tricia, share with us the importance of music for self-care.
Well, the first thing I'll share is that I used to sing with Norca, so she's hiding it too.
Cobwebs.
Yeah. There are so many ways. So, number one, the rhythms of music can help to either soothe or hype up your heartbeat, your system, your mood. It's not just about the rhythms, though, the words themselves, the melodies, all of those things can transport you to places that were maybe happier times, maybe things you hoped for, someone you love that you want to remember that you may not have in your life anymore. All of those things are ways in which, by listening to the music, by singing, by moving, by dancing, by just whatever it is you do. I cook. Anytime I'm in the kitchen, there's music on. As I said before, I drive. There was a meme that came out recently that said, if I talk to you while I'm driving, I must really like you because that's my singing time. And that's true. So when they say that music is like the soundtrack of your life, it's true. If you need to find yourself at a specific place of peace when you cannot get away physically, just closing yourself off in a room anywhere and just putting one specific song, type of music tune on will do wonders. And if you have the opportunity to learn to play an instrument, nobody needs to be a concert pianist or, rock band like, guitar player. Just enough for you to be able to sit. Sometimes the only thing that will help you to release the stress in your life and focus on something different is if you're able, even if it's just to tinker along an instrument. It's a gift that you can learn at any age. So it doesn't matter that you may not have learned it when you were growing up. You can learn at any age to play some sort of instrument. It would also add to your ability to bring self-care.
Thank you so much for that,
Oh, that was
Tricia.
incredible.
And can I get your music choices again? Because when I typed it the first time, I don't think it went in. So I have Fred Hammond. What was the name of the song, Tricia?
Don't pass me by. Please don't pass me by. There's that little part where they just do just no words, just like a moan in different voices in the middle of the song. When you hear it, you'll remember me. That's the part.
Okay, so I'm sharing here Tricia's choice, and I hope it comes out. Yes, and can
Yes.
I get Shonda? You had said Regina?
Eugene,
Jean.
Eugene, King with two eyes, pretty brown skin. And if I may just to join in some of what Dr. T is saying, the the arts in general are so influential in healing. We see that it's used a lot now, especially with things such as self-care, well-care, well-being. All of these things are coming into play. And I think for some of us, and I can speak for myself, it's almost like it's genetic, coming from also a family of singers. I mimicked my mother, and that's how I became a choir singer all throughout school. So I think that to be influenced by that is definitely healing. And I think for many people who are of African descent, we know that that's what our ancestors were known for doing, especially a cappella without instruments, but then having their own. And so we continue to carry those things throughout. And in a heartbeat, we can break out into tune.
Yeah,
It
that
may
is
be
true.
in a different, it may be in key Z, but we know how to do it.
That is true. Thank you for that. And yes, I forgot. Shonda and her mother make a mean duet. I remember hearing them. We saw here that Beth shared that she likes cooking with music. Absolutely, very relaxing. Cecily Broadway shared that Whitney, One Moment in Time is her song. Anything that's going to give us joy at the moment, let's do that. And let's remember, our goal is to take those moments to self-care. So today we have some news. We're going to focus a little bit on what For Real Women International USA is doing. But we are so excited because one of our team members ran the New York City Marathon. Her name is Phyllis Forbes. Run, Phyllis, run. And let me tell you, Phyllis is 67. Yes.
No.
7 years. You see that picture where she's ahead of the pack? Look at that picture where she is ahead of the pack, lady.
I like the pose one with the hand on the hip.
Yeah.
I know. She said that this was before the race. And this other one was in the race. And notice she's in the race and she's like flying. She's like number one. I love it. This is Phyllis' second New York City Marathon race. She trains with the Spartan Sundays Run Club. Close to marathon time. They do team runs every Sunday morning. They wake up early in the morning and they run. But on a general, I can tell you, I know this woman, she's always running. Right? And
congratulations.
Then I know before COVID-19, she shared that they are usually always on the prep for the race. So we are so excited. And you know, it's interesting. Phyllis decided to run the marathon because some other people from the club were running and they decided to run, like follow the race along with them. And she said it was such an exciting, exhilarating feeling. She's like, next year I'm running. And so she did. So yes, amazing Phyllis. We're so excited for her. We think that's awesome. Like, Phyllis, I really wish I could. Maybe I could. You keep saying you could train us. Maybe we can. All right.
So 67, Norca. We've got time.
I know. She's exactly. Can you imagine at 66?
67. We could start now and we still have like 15 more years before we get to her age.
It is so true. It is so true. And Glenda, thank you. We're screening your African praise. You like Bob Marley. Yes, we do too. Yes, at 67. Exactly, Beth. 67. By the way, Beth is one of the For Real Women sponsors. I think this is perhaps the first time she's been able to join us live. So we're excited.
Welcome, Beth.
Welcome, Beth. Good to have you. Okay, so I want to share with you a video of a particular, before I go into this particular event that Queens, Long Island shared, I want to share with you a very quick video that was created by the For Real Women International Pennsylvania, Philadelphia group about helping to give girls confidence. So we're going to screen that.
Hello, everyone. I am Lavana Semple, teacher in the education sector and change agent in the Philadelphia chapter of the For Real Women International. Here I will examine 6 other ways we can help our girls grow into strong, confident women. Now this next point, I like it a whole lot. It speaks about modeling confidence. And we as women, we need to model confidence. These young girls, they look up to us as great inspirations to them and for us to set examples. So it's important to be consciously aware of how we act, speak about ourselves, speak about other women, and also how we speak about them. These young girls, they look at us and most of the times we don't even take notice. And so when we model this confidence and this beauty, they pick up our confidence and turn it into their own confidence. With that new gained confidence, they begin to feel beautiful about themselves. They begin to feel beautiful in their own skin. You know, they have this new confidence, and this confidence now will take them to a whole nother level.
That's awesome. That was by the Pennsylvania group. Fantastic work on the video. And yeah, modeling. I just want to say to everyone that for Women International celebrates the Day of the Girl. That's one of our service days.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the teams, almost everybody likes Day of the Girl. Who won't like Day of the Girl? So everybody tries to do something for Day of the Girl. So this was what the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia group. They actually have 6 things. I am just sharing with you one.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to share with you Fiona's page. You can go on her channel. She is the leader of that team. You can go on. Fiona has great content. She has been on this Pink Room before. She has great content on issues with relationships. You should go on, follow her YouTube channel, subscribe, and just follow some of the great content that she has there. So we're going to go back and share with you what the other teams were doing. So we have the Queens Long Island team. They did digital generation or generation girl code. They were able to allow the girls to explore the digital world through STEM, through code bias, through catfishing, human trafficking. Actually, someone came on, there was a guest presenter who shared her story of how she survived human trafficking. And she also provided the girls with tools and clues and helped them to identify a series of fake internet profiles and how they needed to look for predators. They needed to be wary and be mindful of predators on the internet. And they had more than 30 girls participating at this event. Great work, Queens Long Island. And we see some of the organizers in the photo. Very, very good work there. So congratulations, Queens Long Island. Good work. Good work. And then we have Florida. Florida, we have Carlene Harris Solomon. Carlene shares with us that she had 2 events. One was Day of the Girl. And the beautiful thing about the event that she had, she titled it Perfectly Imperfect. And she brought broken pieces or pieces of broken pottery. She gave each girl in a bag, and then she told them, put it together, paint it, color it, understand that we're all imperfect, we're all a work in progress, and we're all beautiful. And the girls were really touched by it. As you can see in the pictures, the girls working on their projects. There were 15 girls at that project. Good job, Carlene. Really excellently done. Carlene is there in the photo. Excellent done. I love the concept. Excellently done. I love the concept. And then she had Mother's Day appreciation for the teachers at the Crossroads Christian School, and she gave out tote bags. The tote bags had a makeup bag, magnets, and five teachers were served. But Carlene also shares with us that twice a month she mentors 4 girls ages 10 to 13 in Jamaica, West Indies via Zoom. What a beautiful thing with Zoom.
Yes.
Via Zoom. So she's able to meet with these girls, listen, share with them. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Kudos to Carlene. Great work there in Florida. We are so impressed, Carlene, with the work you're doing. I'm going to share some of the stuff that people are saying here. Beth, excellent piece. Thank you. So important. It's terrifying. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We're going to go into our news from the world of women. News from the world of women. And we're going to start with news about girls that are not so heartwarming, but important for us to know. Tricia, take it away for us.
So I think that one of the most sad pieces I've watched in the midst of all the stuff we're going through is this news piece that Norca initially shared with us, the Pink Room show host, on Afghan child brides. And this isn't something that's new, but it has become more pressing since the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. And what is happening is that families are not being able to support each other financially because of the what has been done to not support the current regime. So they are having to sell their daughters into marriage. And these are little girls. They're not even teenagers yet. They're not even pre-teenagers yet. And you see these old men that are old for me, and I'm 51. And you're talking about 9, 10-year-old girls, and they do not want to go. And what, aside from everything that broke my heart in this story, the parents don't want to sell them. So before you can almost have the notion that this is something that the families do to get money, easy way, they don't want to necessarily have to work or sacrifice. Not this piece. The parents are struggling. The fathers do not want to sell their daughters, but they are already in debt with these men. And then they come to collect the debt, to collect it all at once. And since the family can't pay it, they take the child as payment for the debt. And things aren't getting better. So it's not like these families have sold their child and that from now on things changed. They will still have to be in debt because it's where they live, it's how they eat. So they will have to continue to sell their children. And when we watched this, what I shared with my co-hostesses was, if this was oil, if oil was the currency that was being sold, we would have invaded already. But because these are lives of little girls, why is it that this can be just news that we watch and that there isn't anything that can be done to protect these little girls from being sold into marriage? And they're not sold in to be slaves or servants. They're sold into marriage, which means that they immediately become sexual objects, that they immediately have to become mothers, that the time they have to be mothers is lengthened from even before they even know what it is to be a child. Now they are mothers themselves. So it was just one of the saddest piece of news I've seen in recent times. And I haven't been able to process, what it's just hard. I can't imagine.
I think you're muted, Norga.
It really is heartbreaking. And I think the video clip that we saw in particular,
Yes.
it was this little girl. I think she was like 8 or 9. She was
9 years old.
9 years old. This man of 70 something came
Yes.
to, get his debt at $500. And when he's taking the little girl away, she's digging her heels in the ground,
pulling away and falling on the ground.
Heels like, no, I'm not going.
I don't want to go.
And he takes her away, and I like Tricia, I was having nightmares that night about, my God, like, I can just imagine. And then to start her life out that way, because that's very early in life to start with that type of suffering. It is heartbreaking. And I do agree with Tricia. If this was oil, if this was arms, trust me,
we'd be in there.
We would be in there.
We would be in there.
Right.
We would not have left that place that way.
We would be in there. And when I say we, I'm saying Western world. I'm not saying only United States. I'm not trying to be critical of the country where I live in. But we seldom make wars to save people.
No, wars are never made to save people.
They're always about some economical thing. They're not to save people. And lest we think that this only happens on that side of the world. This happens on this side of the world every day, which is part of why we're having this show today. Because in our side of the world, parents may not be actively selling them, but the children are being bought and sold.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In the platform that we have to talk about today. So this isn't just the old, far away, let's be sorry about them kind of thing. This is open your eyes. It's happening here too. And it's not necessarily a 77-year-old man walking in and pulling your child away. Your child could be pulled away at home in front of that computer.
Absolutely.
I like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
I like how you married that, Trisha, in terms of how this platform for today is. But
Hmm.
this antiquated practice has been out for, I mean, it has continued to prevail throughout the world. And like you said, wars are not about saving people. It's always about some generational wealth of some sort,
Yeah.
um, where the people who should benefit from a won war usually do not. But it is so sad because I don't know what else um, should be drawing the attention of the world other than this
Yeah.
inhumane practice. This is like taking a baby from its mother's breast while it's drinking milk. I mean, seriously, they're that young. They have no clue what they're doing and getting into. It's infuriating, and it should be dealt with um, constantly, but unfortunately, we don't. It's usually tucked away in some global documentary that you discovered, or perhaps a small news piece. And
Yeah.
these are lives that are valuable. And just like Philadelphia pointed up about that confidence, I wish these girls had the opportunity to even know there was such a thing that existed. That way, they could either speak, fight, or do something, even in their own small minds. And know, at least they know they tried.
Yeah.
I think that that is the value of what we do, right? Because as Tricia said, we married in that we may not have old men coming to the door to take girls, but there are other ways in which we lose our girls, right? And
Yeah.
this is why it is important for us to really not only celebrate them, but let them see the value in themselves,
That's right.
so that they don't find themselves feeling that other things and people need to give them the value. In the case of the Afghan girls, raising more voices and bringing awareness, it's kind of chipping away. It might not do exactly what we want as quick as we want, but it is better than just turning our heads as if it doesn't happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
remember those
Absolutely.
girls and join any initiative. I remember Beth called me once. What can we do for the women in Afghanistan? We were still in conversations about that. Remember them. Remember them. So we have the Michigan Solicitor General Fadwa Hammoud. Shonda, could you share with us about her?
So again, what I like about this platform is we talk about women from all over the world, which is what this segment is about. And take
Hmm.
a look. Fadwa Hammoud, coming from Lebanon at 11 years old, similar part of the world where girls are bought and sold as child brides.
Yes.
And here she had an opportunity, thank goodness that her family probably took her at the peak, come to America.
Mhm.
And here she was able to just go through the education experiences that some others don't have, where she actually reached this high level of being the first Arab American. She's also Muslim. And so
Mhm.
here she is about to argue a case for the government in the United States Supreme Court. So it is possible. But as you said, it's platforms like this, having the opportunity to just reach people throughout the world where they know that there are different opportunities. If it's not the girls, the families understand what the power of making changes in their family and their community can do. So it's a
Yeah.
pleasure to know that we're still at first. So it's a good thing to know we're at first, because here she is as
Mhm.
this Arab American woman who has a chance to um, fight a case in the Supreme Court on behalf of the government. And that particular case was about a murder where a gentleman, Mr. Davenport, was convicted of a murder in 2008. And while he was in trial, throughout his trial, he was shackled, hands, waist, feet, and it was found unconstitutional by the state. He was able to file a case so that it would possibly overturn his conviction. And he's basically saying that, look, that the jury seeing me in shackles helped get my verdict. And right now she has to argue against the fact that the government from all levels should at least stand together and agree with what happens throughout. So whether she wins or not, it's the idea that she is in the highest court of the land, being
Yeah.
seen as a first and a woman of color to advocate on behalf of the government. That's rare.
Awesome work. Awesome work. I love the people always say, you know, if they're first, that means that there's a problem. I always like the first because the first indicate that the problem is being remedied in some way. The ceiling is being broken. So,
Yes.
so more power to her, Fadwa, for that. And thank you for sharing that. I don't know, Tricia, you had any comments on that?
No, not this one.
Okay, so I'm bringing to you Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. So excited about this young woman. She's a Harvard Law School graduate and now, of course, the mayor elect of Boston. She's the daughter of Taiwanese immigrants. First Asian American woman to serve on the council in Boston. She served there from 2013 onward to 2021. From 2014 to 21, she was actually the president of the council. Then she became a candidate for the mayoral election, and she won by 62.4% of the vote.
Wow.
Know anything about elections, that is very, very high. She is well liked. She is progressive in her views. She has then now become the first woman of color, the first person of color, and the first Asian American to be directly elected in Boston. She's a protege of Elizabeth Warren, believe it or not. Elizabeth Warren was her professor in Harvard Law School. And Warren then invited her to help work on her United States Senate campaign. One interesting thing that Wu says about Warren is that she says that what impresses her about Warren is that Warren is the same person who was her professor, as now being in these larger roles in government, that she has not changed. The same woman. She has no great pretenses because of these roles, and she said that really said to her that you can be your authentic self even though you're in these larger roles. But another thing that impresses me about Wu is that when she graduated from college, and of course, you know, with a degree from Harvard Law, she got hired, of course, in a big law firm. She was having a rising career. And one day her two younger sisters called her and said to her, you need to come because something is happening to mom. And she went home and realized that her mother was in the middle of a mental health crisis. And she never came back from it. And Michelle Wu left her job, starting that career, you know, starting to be able high trajectory professionally. She left that job and she said she decided to take care of her mother and her two younger siblings. And what she did was open a tea shop and use the tea shop to be able to take care of her siblings and her mother and be able to get income for the family. And it is in that experience of having to deal with the red tape and all the bureaucracy that she realized that regular folk have a hard time if they want to start their own business. And that convicted her after her mom passed that she needed to do something. And the best way of doing that was to run for office. So more power to Michelle Wu. Excited about her trajectory and what she's going to bring to the plate.
I am so encouraged, proud, excited about women stepping into roles of public leadership, elected officials, not just behind the scenes anymore, bringing the coffee, writing the speeches, you know, driving the car around, raising the children, putting them through school. And I'm not being dismissive at all about what it takes to be in public office as a man. But the kind of scrutiny and commentary that comes to a woman that's running for office, everything from asking about her childbearing age to when she has her period and how that affects her mood and how that affects her, you know, ability to be steady and stable and not push the red button. Things that are never questioned in men. The kind of fortitude, inner core strength that it takes to decide to run and then work what you ran for. I'm so happy to see that so many women are doing it now. And I think that it's because we feel we have to. Because there comes a point where you say, okay, this isn't getting fixed. I talked to a dear friend today that said she finally understood the meaning of the phrase, no one's gonna come.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some of us learn that phrase early, some of us learn it later, but there comes a point in everybody's life where you see no one's gonna come. It's God and you. And to see so many women stepping up to that by seeing that coming to is going into public office and running stuff, running cities, running organizations. I'm so encouraged by that. I love that.
Wow.
I totally agree with Tricia. And I think the important thing is that these women are coming from experiences that are diverse and are different. So they're coming with a level of understanding and heart that is lacking, right? To leave your career because you understand the need of being there for your mom who was there for you. Typically, what would it be? Put mom in a nursing home. And then I'll figure out how I'm going to take care, but I'm not going to leave my career, right? So coming in with that, you already have a heart for compassion when people say to you, listen, I have an elderly parent at home who is struggling with mental health issues. You understand it because you've been there, right? So the importance of having women, even Fadwa, coming from where she comes, it is important to have that diverse perspective in everything. And I agree. The stepping up, I know I recently had a meeting and someone said to me, but why are we doing this? Because it's not going to change the system anyway. So I said, I get it. The system may not change, but at least we would have tried to make a difference. And while we may not change the entire system, we'll make a dent. So the goal here is to make a dent and step up and do it. We can't just give up because nobody is coming. We got to step up. We got to step up. So great point. So,
but
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, you know what I like about what we see happening, more and more women taking up political positions. As Tricia said, women have done the leading behind the scenes. But to see the political prowess that exists where we're actually being elected into offices and into high position,
and in great numbers.
And it just shows the world that yes, you can't lead without women. And that what you've been trying to do in the dark now has come to light, and women are running a lot. Not that they're doing it all by themselves or all alone, but to actually see what gender equality looks like. You're beginning to see it more and more, and it shows that people are willing to go and vote on the side of, the right side of history.
Right, absolutely. We're screening some great comments here, bringing awareness to issues. People are celebrating Michelle Wu. We have an exciting topic. We said it before, the fake life, how social media has impacted our mental and social well-being and what we need to do. We're going to bring on the experts. We have Dr. Allison Regis, Dr. Shauna Kay, and Dr. Lona Gordon. We're going to bring them on to introduce themselves to you at this time, so that they can share with you their fierceness and their wonderfulness. Hi.
Welcome, ladies.
So we're going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves and just share with us a little bit of what they do on the professional level. And I think they're mothers and single women. Just share with us all that you would like to share about yourself at this time. And thank you for coming.
You want to say who goes first, Norca?
Okay. Okay, so let me start with the one that's right under me. Shauna Kay, and then Lona, and then Allison.
Good evening, sisters. So wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. My name is Dr. Shauna Kay Denham Wilks. I am coming to you from the land of multitasking as a spouse, as a parent, as a clinical psychologist, and I am the Chief Experience Officer of one of the largest hospitals in Brooklyn, New York, the 14th busiest emergency department in the country, a level 1 trauma center, where I direct the strategy around patient experience workforce engagement, and staff wellness. And it's such a pleasure to be here along with my esteemed colleagues. Thanks again for the invitation.
Welcome.
Welcome again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lana Gordon. I'm the Chief of Adolescent Medicine at Nemours Children's Hospital in Orlando. And yeah, I mean, I am a single woman, but busy. I have 11 godchildren. So apparently people think that single women are great people to take care of their children if something happens. So they keep me pretty busy along with my multi-poo who is bothering me at the moment. But other than that, I have recently started my own adolescent wellness business called The Knobs. And so I just really feel very passionate about just really encouraging people to recognize the value and the power that's held by adolescence. I think a lot of times people think of adolescence as a throwaway time in life, but adolescence is actually super important in helping you make the transition from childhood to adulthood. And there's so many great values that are and strengths that are developed during adolescence that serve you well in womanhood. So, yeah.
Good for you. I didn't know about the business. Good for you.
Wow.
Dipping my feet into entrepreneurship. My mom is a business person, so she's probably most proud about that.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Dr. Allison Regis. Like my colleagues have mentioned, I'm a woman who wears many different hats as well. Speaking about entrepreneurship, one of the more recent hats I've worn is starting a career coaching business, Liberated Professionals, and essentially helping people who are like us in different walks of life, in different stages of life, being able to free themselves and really focus on their wellness and well-being when it comes to career. But besides that, I'm also a New York State licensed psychologist, and I currently work as a counselor in the Percy E. Sutton Seek program at Queens College. And overall, for the past 10 plus years, I've been working in mental health related to college students. And I'm also an adjunct professor in mental health counseling. So just kind of a lot of, again, busy single woman.
Yeah. So, and one of the reasons why we are so blessed that you will come into the space, because your lives are definitely very, very busy, and you're heavy hitters, all three of you where you are positioned. But we also wanted to drive the message as we're speaking to not only women, but also young women. Of the possibilities that each one of you bring to the table by being who you are. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it. We're going to start with, share with us your personal journeys with social media. Like, how do you use social media? What has been your journey in social media? Maybe there are lessons that you have learned on social media, things that you have seen that are not so kosher. Just share with us what your personal journeys with social media have been.
So initially, I intended to stay off the grid. I never intended to have a single social media platform. My young people who I mentor dragged me kicking and screaming into the social media sphere. And even one of them joked, Doc, we forced you to get on here and now you have more followers than all of us. What's going on? So, I was not an early adopter. And I really had a lot of negative thoughts and feelings about social media, just based on experiences of seeing how it impacted the lives of young people that I worked with. But my sister and I then developed actually a beauty and wellness platform called Natural Hair Does Care, which has over 250,000 followers around the world. Which afforded us an opportunity to really have an influence on the wellness and beauty space around women with Afro-textured hair. And natural hair does care really gave me an insight around algorithms, around likes, around all kinds of aspects of social media, about reposting, about ownership, about copyright, et cetera, et cetera. And so I went from a naysayer to finding ways to leverage social media in order to do advocacy and really influence the space around the wellness and beauty of women with Afro-textured hair. So that's been my journey.
I feel like for me, on a personal level, I've always been someone who I've had a love-hate relationship when it's come to social media. I joined social media, I think, starting, I want to say in high school. So pretty early on, that was the thing that you had to do. You had to be on MySpace, Skonex. And then as soon as back when Facebook, you had to have a college email address. That was the thing to do. I remember senior year of high school. Oh, do you know what college you're going to? Oh, you have to join Facebook and you have to do this or that. But I felt like at a certain point, it was just too much. There was like such a saturation. And it felt like for me, if I wasn't on social media a certain amount, then I didn't know what was going on. And then it just kind of ended up spending more time rather than really doing things that I needed to do. So I think for me, I've been trying to, I think pretty successfully now, find that balance between overindulging, but also still finding information, because I do think it can be such a good source of finding information. And particularly, I know for me, and maybe for many of you also, have a lot of family who are overseas. Yeah. And I feel like social media has been something that's been helpful for me to feel connected with my family, even if I don't really get to see them very often, even for some of them who speak Spanish. And I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I can hit translate on their post. So I understand a little bit more about what they're talking about. I feel like in that way, social media has been something positive for me.
So similar, I'm apparently a geriatric millennial. So I was a late adapter of social media. And I was pretty resistant to it initially. I think I actually interestingly started with Instagram. And that was mainly because when I moved to New York for fellowship, my mom and I are very close. And I wanted to have a way to kind of share my life with her. And I would post a picture every day. And so my initial plan was just to go to New York for the 3 years that fellowship was happening. And so my thought was like, this will be a really cool way to kind of chronicle that experience of exploring a new place. And so I would post one interesting thing I saw every single day. And that was kind of, in fact, actually I started with Flickr. And then when Flickr wasn't convenient, then I went to Instagram. And so I had vehemently opposed Facebook. It came out when I was in med school. And I was like, I'm not getting a Facebook account. I'm not getting a Facebook account. I'm not getting a Facebook account. And it was hilarious to the point that like friends knew I was so anti getting a Facebook account that if they saw me tagged or anything in a post, they would tell me, because they would just like watch me. I'd kind of be like, take me off. Don't post me, like, don't tag me. Don't put my name out there. Because I think the thing that I was acutely aware of, I think earlier than maybe other people thought about, was that I was like, this makes you very trackable. And there was something I didn't like about that. And so as a result, I was very conscious of kind of protecting my identity in that way. Fast forward, I mean, I got a Facebook account basically because my little sister started a business and I wanted to be supportive. And so that was initially why I got a Facebook account. Now I have pretty much all the social media accounts because professionally it's really useful. One, because I have to know what all the cool kids are doing. And two, it's a great way to connect with others, to find other colleagues, to find like-minded people. But I think that, I still try to be cognizant of thinking about, who I post, who I tag, when I, my privacy settings, but also being very intentional about how I use my social media and when I use my social media. So there are only set times in the day that I go on social media, so that way I keep kind of some healthy boundaries around that, because it can definitely be a time suck in that sense.
Very, very interesting. I think I can see myself in all of you. Somebody asked a question here. Let's put that up. The question is, How is it that Instagram is more popular than Facebook, but Facebook bought Instagram and WhatsApp? Very true. Very, very true. Very, very true. So that leads me to this question: which one of the all the social media platforms, which are your favorite, or which one is the one that you mostly your go-to social media platform?
Well, see, that depends on who I'm trying to talk to. So, who uses what platform is very age-based. So the reason why Instagram is more popular than Facebook has to do with who kind of the movers and shakers are right now in society. So the older Gen Z members really like Instagram, and they like Instagram because there's not the ability to overshare in the same way there is on Facebook. And you can give people information with very little context. And because Gen Zers now are kind of the up and coming people in the market, that is what has driven that popularity. That will likely switch over to TikTok because the younger Gen Zers really like TikTok. And so as they move into their domain, that will probably become the most popular one. But I like Facebook when I'm talking to people who are more my peers. I like the fact that Facebook, you can put a lot of narrative in there. It feels very personal in that sense. I like Instagram because I can follow kind of various hashtags, themes. I like photography as a hobby. So Instagram is a lot of fun for me in that sense. WhatsApp is great I like to travel, keep in contact with my international family. So WhatsApp's wonderful in that sense. TikTok to me is hilarious. So while I don't do any posting on TikTok, I like it for the little short video clips that are on there. Some of them are quite funny. And Twitter is wonderful for advocacy. You want something done quickly, Twitter's the way to go. So I think that, different social media has different purposes.
You're muted, Norca, you're mute.
Sorry, we're going to also ask those who are with us, the audience, if you could share with us what your go-to social media platform is, and maybe share with us why. That would be great as we listen to Allison and Shauna K share with us what their go-to, which one of them is their go-to social media platform.
I think, Lana, you made such good distinctions. I feel like you broke it down kind of like one of those articles that said, here are the pros and the cons of each.
Yes.
Because I feel like I could really connect with a lot of that, especially the way I usually think of Instagram is that people like pictures, like sometimes when you want to keep it simple, and by people I mean me. So Instagram is like, I'm just scrolling through, I see memes, I want to just tag someone real quick on that. I feel like I'll use Instagram in that way. But if I'm really, I don't share a lot of personal things on Facebook, but if I was going to share anything personal, it probably would be on Facebook, since the people who are on my Facebook are mostly like my friends or family or people who I've gone to school with or something like that. Whereas for Instagram, I have a couple people I don't really know, but we may have like followed the same things, and it's just a little bit more random. So I'm not going to put, well, this great thing happened to me. I may not really put that on my Instagram just because of who is on or who is not on that platform. But yeah, I'd say my go-to would be Facebook for sure. And I find myself a lot of times just scrolling mindlessly through Facebook and seeing like, what's the update on this person? Like there are people I haven't seen probably since high school, but I can tell you how many kids they have. I can tell you that they just bought a house, just because there is so much information there. It's like a rabbit hole. Sometimes you're like, wait, what happened? No, I have to click on this person's profile so I can understand the whole history. So I think that is in a way part of why I like Facebook too. You can follow the story.
Shauna K. I don't know if Shauna K, can you hear us? I think she's trying to adjust her camera.
Yeah. There she goes.
Okay, there we go.
My internet seems really unstable, so I really apologize. I hope that I'm not coming across broken up. If
you're good.
Someone can let me know.
You're fine.
I've switched platforms twice already, trying to make sure that the integrity of the sound is coming through. So I apologize if it's not. I like the platforms that I can toggle together, where I can post in one place and it goes to multiple places. So I tend to like those as well. So just like everyone else said, I post in different genres based on what I'm trying to convey and what I want to interact with as well.
Right. Do you guys find that, at least I feel that is my experience, that there are platforms where you have a certain crowd and there's another certain crowd, and I try not to mix them. I try not to mix what's on, maybe sometimes IG and Facebook, maybe, but I try not to mix definitely what's on LinkedIn. I'm not mixing with Facebook.
Oh, no.
So that type of thing. Or what's on Twitter, I'm not mixing. Do you guys find that you have different congregations, so to speak, on platforms? Everyone is shaking their head. So I guess I'm not crazy. Okay, good. And we see that I think that what we have seen here is that most people seem to be gravitating to Facebook, IG, WhatsApp. Yeah. That seems to be the thing. So let's jump in. When we talk about the good part of social media, I know Lana mentioned information. What are some benefits of social media? Because I know sometimes we look at the dark side, but what are the benefits of social media?
Ladies, if I can just say for one moment,
go ahead, Shanta.
Before we go into that, I just had a retro internal laugh. Thought about MySpace. It just was a random internal laugh I had this year. We're talking about all these places, and I think it would be cool if we could put all these things together and use them conveniently in a space called MySpace, so that when we want to keep those congregations, as you said, Norca, they're right there.
Going back in history.
I know.
Yeah. So just again, also just before we jump into that part, something that two of our guests said resonated with me. I did not want to go on Facebook. I was totally against it. And I was working in a school at the time. And one of my colleagues came in, she was the chaplain actually, came into my office and said, "Did you know that your student's mother died?" And I said, "No, I didn't know." She said, "You need to go on Facebook." And I said, "What does one thing have to do with the other?" And she said, "You will find out more about what's going on with the people you care about on Facebook than any other way. They won't come to your office, but you can find it out on Facebook." And I got on that day. And till today, most of the people who I'm friends with on Facebook are former students that I still keep in touch with after all of many years later. And now I see their kids and where their kids are going to in school, old classmates, even from grade school. So it's true that even though a lot of us may have had second thoughts about going in, once we're in, we're in. Because Lana says she goes in only certain times a day, but I see Lana, and Lana sees me quite often. Mm-hmm. So yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk about the benefits. Social media benefits. Information is one. It sounds to me like information on people.
But in general,
information in general. I think also connection. I think that, I agree, there are people who, so my 8th grade math teacher and I are Facebook friends. If you had told me in 8th grade that I would be friends on, that I would have any conversation with my 8th grade math teacher at 39, I would have told you,
no.
So, but I mean, it really is wonderful to get to know her on this level. I mean, definitely, we definitely talk about things that I would have never imagined we would have talked about, in my younger mind. And also, so her daughter is someone who's a pediatrician earlier in her career. So I've been able to give her daughter some advice, so it is a good way to maintain connection for sure. I think that while there's a lot of misinformation that gets disseminated on social media, I think that there is at least some knowledge of things that are happening. So I like social media for advocacy purposes. I think about people like Sean King. I think about people who, really bring to a head. You think about the George Floyd murder. I mean, the Ahmaud Arbery murder. Without social media, these are social justice issues that would have never come to light, because suddenly, instead of one or two people in a locality knowing about something, literally the whole world knows about it. The whole world is following. The whole world is talking about it. The whole world is an audience. Yeah. So those are, I think, some of the perks of social media.
I think also it's a great place to find community and create community. You can find your people. I was a very quirky kid when it came to reading. Like, I would rather read a book than talk to people. And like, books took me all over the world, and it was a way for me to really tap into my creativity and my imagination. And you can find that community of other people who would rather read books than talk to people, but would love to talk to other people about the books they're reading. And that's just one example. But to be able to find community, to find your people around your particular interests, I think is a great thing about social media. When my sister and I built this platform, we really thought we were building a place where people would ask us about what we did for hair care, and we thought we would just create a blog, answer the 3 questions, and then we would be done. And, hundreds of thousands of people later, it is a place where we have a sense of community, a sense of belonging that we have created and shaped and curated in a very specific way. And the people who want to be there are there. So I think that's one of the great things about social media, is the ability to find community and create community.
And I like the idea that in many ways you can curate the community that you have. You don't have to accept everyone in. Some people do. But you can choose who is part of that community. Alison, you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think also it's kind of similar to what people were mentioning, but I feel like in a sense you get a diversity of opinions potentially, for good or bad sometimes. Because I think about some of the posts I'll see someone mention something. I've learned sometimes not to always read the comments, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm curious. Let's see.
They're the best part.
It depends though. Sometimes I'm not in the mood. I'm like, this is a feel good story. I just want to feel good. I don't want to hear all the back and forth about it. But I do think that it does have some value of being exposed to maybe a slightly different perspective than what you may get in just your immediate circle. And especially I feel like if the conversation can be respectful and people not really just digging in their heels on their perspective, I think it can be also a really good learning experience. I think learning not even just about that particular topic, but even learning how to navigate difficult conversations in that type of platform.
I think that like just to sit a moment in this idea that there may be groups that are so specific and special that you may not have anyone in your local community that shares that interest or that has had that particular experience. But you can get that community in social media. You may never meet some of these people face to face, but that shared experience, whatever it is, negative or positive, whether it be violence or traveling or anything in between, then you automatically have things in common with people that you may not have anybody else around you that shares that interest. You're the odd one in your group. But because there's this community in social media, all of a sudden you have this strong, sense of belonging. And I believe that that sense is one of the ones that as humans we yearn the most for. Right. That sense of belonging. And that not everybody automatically gets that in the family they're in or in the place they live. And what social media has done is made that a possibility that can get bad and ugly, but that in some cases is also very good.
Right.
You know what I like of?
Go ahead, Shonda. Go ahead.
Okay. You know what I like about it? I think we could probably have a consensus that community is one of the benefits. And what I'm thinking, especially during this pandemic, a lot of our elders had the opportunity to not only just engage via instant, communication, but they too were able to connect and to see things and read about things that were going on not only in their communities. It broadened their horizons, that they were able to see things that were happening in the world. and beyond. And so I think, I would like to say that consensus, one of the good parts is definitely community when it's healthy, and when you can navigate who and what you will allow into your space. So I'm just thinking about that generation, our elders who, as you said, Tricia, the longing of connection. This may not be a physical, but it is a level of connection that's good for the soul.
Right. I'm looking at Tamar's comment here, and I'm thinking about myself. A lot of the products that I use, especially for here, are social media recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, this is where we go to even restaurants. Like somebody would say, hey, I went to this place and it's fantastic, and I'll go try it out. So yeah, this is really the go-to place for a lot of aspects of our lives. It's community, but it's also getting information about other things, reviews, so many things. And Lona, that point that you mentioned about social justice, think about how it escalated the awareness of, I think Will Smith said something like, this has always been going on. The difference now is that it's a picture and it's posted on social media, so the world sees it. Think about the escalation in a good way of these social justice issues because of social media. Yeah. All right. So we're ready for the next one. Okay. So the obsessive, deceptive, altering, depressive parts of it. What are our thoughts about some of the negative aspects of social media?
I think so automatically. Go ahead.
Thank you, sis. So the algorithm, I think, is one of the things that we really need to tap into a little bit more. How it's designed to make sure that no matter what you are looking at, as long as you are looking, as long as you're engaged, as long as you remain on the platform, then the algorithm is doing its job, right? So I think that to the extent that social media time has draws you in and takes you out of the sense of real time, I think that that's definitely something that's challenging and problematic about the platform. And then, the algorithm, I remember once someone saying to me, no, actually she posted, I got on my phone and my phone automatically started giving me directions to my mother's house. How did they know that I was going to be heading there? And I said to her, it's the algorithm. And she said, yeah, but I didn't put anything in. I didn't type anything in. So I think people's lack of awareness that the algorithm is operating behind the scenes, so to speak, that when you are even in proximity to another phone, that if you're in proximity to the other phone for an extended period of time, the algorithm assumes that you're somehow connected to that person, and then will start to show you things of interest to that person as well as to yourself. So I think that the idea that we're in control in a way that puts the onus on us about how much we engage with social media is a bit misleading. And I think that people need to understand better how the algorithm is using the information that it gathers in order to create and cultivate habits in us that keep us engaged in social media platforms, maybe even longer than we intend to.
Thank you for that, Shauna K. That is so critical. I think we believe that we're in control many times, and we really aren't. And not only keep us engaged, but also having us purchase certain things, right? Having us have certain practices of things that we do because of our exposure and what we do. So any more comments on that? I think that's great. I'm screening. Emily here says that she does the same thing. She finds new businesses on IG when she's in that city because of the social media recommendations. Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that algorithm for sure. Because I feel like I've had people who mentioned I went to my mom's house and I stayed there for a couple of days, and now I'm getting ads for her favorite toothpaste or things that they don't really buy for themselves. And I feel like I've definitely fallen prey to, I mentioned this outfit or something, and then I keep seeing it on different social media, and I'm like, okay, I ignored it once, I ignored it twice. I think I might get that shirt now. So I think that can definitely be such a tricky part of social media, since it's true that we don't really, or we don't often think about all of those kind of dangerous pieces of it. And I think one thing I also did want to mention as well was just like, I think as soon as you mentioned the question, I was thinking about some of my students who come to my office telling me, or on Zoom, telling me just around, oh, this person said this thing on social media, and they're really upset about it. And they're like, no, wait, Dr. Regis, let me read the post to you. And then they take out their phone and then they're reading it and they're like, it had a period, not an exclamation mark. And so we start analyzing, okay, well, what did that mean? And I've learned so much about what subliminals are. Basically, they're like, oh, well, that person must have posted this about me because we had an argument. And now all of a sudden they're talking about people can't be trusted. I know they're talking about me. And just, I think that sometimes can be a little bit of the ugly side, is not being able to really hear someone's tone, or you assume someone's intention, or you also just figure you don't take the time to then have a real conversation about it. You just assume the worst, and it escalates into something it didn't need to escalate into.
And I think particularly for young people, where the struggle is that for all of us as adults who have fully formed frontal lobes, there is some ability to filter kind of what we're seeing, determine what's in line with reality, what's in line with our reality, and put some boundaries and some parameters around that. But for people who their identity is being formed, so, maybe up to 27 or so, there's less of an ability to do that. And social media very much blurs the line of relationships. Sometimes I have patients' parents who follow me on, some of my more public social media platforms. And then there's a presumed level of familiarity to them because they follow me on social media, and they don't have access to any of my personal social media, but just from my public facing social media, they feel like they know me. And then sometimes there are boundaries that I have to work to reestablish, because I'm like, you don't actually know me. Like, we're not friends. The nature of our relationship is still that you're the parent of my patient, which is a different relationship than a friendship. I think that, there are, I think even simple things like cultural mores around honorifics, who you might address in what way or whatever, that's very confusing for young people, because if it says me and you are friends, then how does that apply to them when I see you in real life? And, kind of recognizing that. I mean, even I like sometimes just, in quick passing, on a social media thing with someone who is older than me, like, because when you hit reply, it automatically just goes to their name. And then, I'm rushing and I don't think to put like, sister or Mr. or, or whatever, auntie or whatever in the thing. And then, afterwards, I'm kind of like, ooh, like that didn't read over well. And not so much because I necessarily, like, I think that they had a problem with it with me, but maybe they posted on something that I wrote, and then somebody else who's a friend more tangentially but doesn't know them comments on something, and then all of a sudden I'm like, like, you're actually talking to my aunt here, like, let's take it back a few steps, you know what I mean? And so I think that there's definitely some blurring. I mean, and I think even for adults, I mean, my mom in the pandemic has discovered YouTube channels, and so she has several YouTube channels of young people that she follows. And so she will call me and talk about someone's YouTube. So I was watching on so-and-so, like she'll say, so I was listening to so-and-so, or I was talking to so-and-so, and I'm like trying to figure out who this person is. I'm like, do they go to church with you? Like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you mean the YouTube person that you follow? Like, Mom, I'm like, please stop talking to me about this YouTube influencer. Like, you and them are besties.
Listen, I go through the same thing with my mom. She's telling me the stuff. I'm like, who said that? Yeah, Mary said that. Who said that on YouTube?
Right, like, it's only when she's like, the one who's in Uganda, Mom. Uganda. You have not been to Uganda. You don't know where Uganda is on a map. Like, what is going on? You do not have friends in Uganda.
Thank you, Ilona. I wanted us to talk a little bit about the performative aspect of it, because I find that oftentimes there's a loss of authenticity because people want to show off, right? Because, oh my goodness, my friend has that, so how am I going to show that I'm not, Let's talk about, and I find it a lot with my students, like, oh, so and so just showed that she did this, and I find the need to want to do that too. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, social media is really your highlight reel, right? So you're definitely presenting that image of yourself of how you do show up or want to show up in those spaces. And the stakes just keep getting raised higher and higher and higher because especially platforms that are very visual, very engaging in that way, definitely bring about that sense of envy, of fear of missing out, of wanting to aspire to that. I remember one of my friends, she often says, about mommy pages or momfluencers. It's a term I find, I'm a mom, but I find the term very weird. So, momfluencers, you'll look at their pages and the children are like, picture perfect and the outfits all match and the holiday pajamas. People are like, if you didn't get your holiday pajamas already, it's too late. Like, too late for what? So this perfectly curated these pages with, the lighting is perfect, everything, all of that. And, I'm like, those are not people who are just taking a random candid shot. Those are people with staff, with projectors, with fancy equipment and outfit changes, stylists, etc. And they're taking shoots on a day for every season, just at that one time. So it's not as authentic as you mentioned as maybe you just, taking that, selfie with your family or trying to, corral the kids into the shot. So I think that that's one of the things that we do have to be mindful of is that, social media is often that highlight reel. And so we it's easy to get caught up in the comparison game. But, it's really something that we have to be very cautious about. Photoshop and filters are real. So what you see, it may not often be what is really there, what's going on. People wear masks of all kinds, especially on social media as well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true, though. Sorry. I think that that's true in real life as well. You, not to the same degree, but people you do not know beyond the surface will present what they want to present.
Yeah.
And you will only see into somebody's life as much as they want to let you in. You may believe that someone has everything going on because of what you see in the office or in the car, but you're not getting past their front door, real life or social media. I think that that tendency to compare ourselves to others didn't start with social media. Keeping up with the Joneses is something that's been around for a long time. What this has done, though, is magnify the amount of people that now you're trying to compare yourself to.
Right.
Because now it's just all these versus just the 5 that you saw at work or when you got on the bus or the train or whatever. But the principles then are not necessarily only tied to social media. So if we're talking about young ladies that we know that we're trying to help mentor, the principle itself of knowing who you are, not comparing yourself to others, understanding that people are going to show up the way they want you to see them, is something that applies before social media is even a thing. This ability to not get affected by what other people say will follow you not only in social media but also in real life. So that's why this conversation is so important, even for people who do not think social media is a thing for them, because the things we're talking about are magnified under the social media, whatever scope, but it's real life as well. Yeah. And those principles are the ones that we need to make sure that our young people are so solid on. It doesn't matter what people say. You need to be sure of who you are. Don't look at other people's lives. All that glitters is a gold. You can't, judge a book by its cover. All of those things have been around forever. And we need to make sure that our young people are solid on those principles and apply them to their real life.
So sometimes I wonder if that is a losing battle, because they are more influenced by what they see and by what is there in front of them on that device than us. And we not to say that what we're saying would not make a dent. It will. And it is on us to continuously share that. But if we remember the whole thing with Facebook and Instagram and the young women and all of that, it seems to me that the power of social media, and not only young people, because I'm telling you, I see older people too, seems to be overtaking people's ability to differentiate. Hey, this is fake. This I don't need to believe, or I am my own self. We see the lines seem to be blurred now even more. I don't know if you guys see that, but that is a feeling that I get when I talk to my students. You give them the you give them the power talk, and they're like, yeah. But then there's that device that they're so drawn to that spends more time with them than whatever little power talk I can give them in a few minutes. Not sure what your thoughts are.
So, I mean, it's important to recognize. Oh, good.
Do we think, and this is a question, Lana, go ahead. I can come back.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's important to recognize that we will never be able to, nor have we ever been able to compete with peer influence over, for an adolescent or a young adult. That is developmentally appropriate. That is what they are supposed to do. It is what all of us did. And so those nuggets are important because they get tucked into the recesses. Yes. So for instance, when Tricia said, all that glitters is not gold, or whatever, I remember immediately my grandmother used to always say to me, see me and live with me are two different things. And so, definitely, I think those things still get tucked into the recesses, but, part of healthy adolescence is testing the boundaries of the family you were raised in and determining which of them stick and which of them don't. And that is a good thing, because while all of us would like to believe that we were all raised in great places, maybe all of us were raised in great places, but there are definitely people around us who were not raised in great places, or were not raised with the same values that we think are good. So, if people did not have the ability to reject values with which they were raised with, then there would be no change, no ability of people to change their viewpoint. And that would be a negative thing. But I think that, teaching young people how to critically appraise what they're seeing, teaching young people how do you determine what is a true friend, teaching young people, and that be whether it be in the virtual space or in real life space, teaching young people how to have conversations with others. Those are all valuable life skills that, are going to be useful in social media, but also are going to be useful in the larger media. Right. So, I think we moved away as pediatricians kind of saying no media to kind of saying, okay, well, this is how you use social media and media in general responsibly. Because the reality is that to get into college at this juncture, all the elite colleges require video essays. Right. So if your child has no concept of how to create something on, any of these platforms, they're not going to be eligible for the elite colleges. Right. So, the time of thinking, well, we're not going to do this, it's gone.
Right.
I like how you said that, Lana, because just to go back to my thought, and we know the performative aspect is so influential. And I've often heard people sometime in my professional and social sphere talk about the undeveloped or the underdeveloped brain of the adolescent, right? And how, like you said, they're just not there yet. But I like how you said that it is healthy. It is a part of the growing process. And we as the adults perhaps in their lives just have the opportunity to continue to show them, how we operate, and hope that they would not mimic exactly, but understand the importance of doing it in a healthier way. And that it's not about comparing yourself to others or thinking you have to be this way or do this way. And because it is such an instant gratification, this is I mean, it triples peer influence because peer pressure, because it's right at our fingertips. You don't have to blink hard. Well, you can blink or you can stare, you can touch, and whatever you're looking for, it's just right there. So, but I like how you said it's a healthy part, but it's just how to for adolescents to go through these things and be so influenced by their peers, but how you can continue to tell them about the importance of being who they are, doing what's right. They go to sleep at night feeling what they did was comfortable or said or posted, all of the above. So just thank you for that point.
Yeah, I mean, I tell all of my teens, I don't care if the decision that they make differs from the decision that I would make. They're different from me. But what I do want them to know is why they made whatever decision they made. Because if you know why you did something, and if it doesn't give you the outcome you desire, you can then figure out how to modify it. But if you make a decision because that's what I want you to do, or that's what your mom wants you to do, or whoever, then if you don't like the outcome, you don't know how to course correct. And, I frequently remind parents, you're not raising a kid, you're raising an adult. So you're raising someone who's going to become an adult. So they need to know how to make decisions.
So what I'm hearing here, Lana, for those of us who work with younger generations, and for those younger generations that are listening to us, the conversation has to be still present. The human interaction, the conversations of what is valuable, what is not, of your self-worth, and those conversations are still valuable and necessary within. We cannot expect that they're going to get that on the social media. So because they're stuck on social media, I'm not necessarily going to have that conversation because, they have their things going on there. Let them figure it out. We still need to be that voice there, providing that knowledge, well, not necessarily knowledge, but providing that awareness, providing that, hey, that being the cheerleader, so to speak, in their corner. Okay.
And young people want real people when things matter.
That is true.
I think one of the things that's been most interesting with, the conversion of everything to virtual with the pandemic is that, so telemedicine has taken off. And there's a huge interest in telemedicine, and, our hospital was already doing telemedicine before. And so, we definitely ramped up, and there was lots of excitement, and people were immediately like, oh, you're going to kill this whole telemedicine thing because, you have teenagers. And I said to them, I've been doing telemedicine since before. The teenagers don't like it. And sure enough, they used telemedicine. So during the lockdown, I was able to maintain my numbers because I don't have to physically lay hands to do 90% of the medical work I do. But the reality is that, so left with no other option, my patients were more than happy to see me via telemedicine. But as soon as there was an option to come back in person, they all come back in person. The only people I see telemedicine is just like before, people who live far away and their parents want them to do telemedicine. Because if the teen has the option, if they can cajole their parents into bringing them into the office, they will. And a lot of parents do because they realize that the visit is not productive over the computer. Because when there is something that there is the desire for intimacy, nothing beats human interaction. And so I think that those are the things that, so I think that, again, it gets back to teaching those principles, because when teens can recognize who are their people, what they value in a friendship, then they shift from only wanting virtual friendships to wanting some in-person friendships. Now, they still want to be on social media to be in the knows, but for the same reason all of us as adults like to be on social media too. But yeah.
I think that this point is very important. That's why I wanted to mention that before. I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, both boys. And I was talking to someone today about the fact that I get 1:37 a.m. texts that start with, "Hey, Mom." And the reason I get them at 1:37 a.m. is because that's when they would walk into my room when they were here and not at college. At 1:37 a.m., they would walk in with the "Hey, Mom." And the "Hey, Mom" would start with some current event video. Did you know that Lecrae took whatever? But eventually ended up with the original intent of the visit. And if I wasn't aware of what was going on in their world, then that initial connection wouldn't lead to the purpose of the visit, so to speak. And one of the things that I had promised myself to do is that I would know what was going on so that we could talk, especially because they're boys. So I know who's who in the NBA, even if at this point, leave me back in the 80s with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I don't care for these new ones, but because they do, then I need to be aware of who plays what with who and when games are starting, because that's the initial conversation for what they really want to say. And that the connection with the intimacy link with this social media thing is, as adults in their world, whether parents, mentors, teachers, part of the use of social media is knowing what's going on.
Right.
Because you need to know what's going on to be able to have a communication that because if you don't know what I care about, then do you really care about me? If you don't care about, if all you can talk to me about is my duties, my obligations, and what my plans are in life, and we can never connect about what things that my people, then you don't really know me. So how can you talk to me? And I think that parents and mentors can make better use of social media in that way, connecting with their real life growing uppers in their homes or in their
Teresa, that is such a powerful point that you're making. And I go back to not only parents and mentors, even me as a higher ed educator, church folk, we need to know what it is interests this generation. Instead of saying, okay, it's bad, it's not good, you're obsessed, we really need to understand what is it that, why are they attracted to it? And really inform ourselves. And that requires that we have to have an open mind. Because things are different. People speak differently. People do things differently now. Right? So that's one of the reasons why I always say I love to work with young people, because I make sure that I sit in it with them. I want to be in tune. I want to speak like they speak, because I want to be able to have that intimate moment with them. But it requires time. It requires open-mindedness. It requires me to put away my judgment and not say, oh my goodness, what is she doing? What? No, it just, you have to really hold yourself and just sit there with them and listen and learn, because you have to really learn from them. I don't know, Shauna K and Allison, I don't know if you wanted to share something.
Yeah, I feel like as we were all talking about it, I was thinking about some of the ways I've used social media, even within my own family, of sharing things with my parents and they're sharing things with me, even things related to like our culture or other things that I wouldn't have been privy to. So I feel like in that way, social media has been something positive. But going back, I guess, a little bit to some of the downsides, I thought a little bit more about what you all were sharing around authenticity. And how even just authenticity and in expression, I feel like is something that has been a little bit challenged in a sense, because I think of some of my students who will say, LOL at the end of something that they're writing, but they're not really laughing. Sometimes they're just saying that to just play it off. They're like, oh yeah, it's okay that you couldn't make this event. LOL, it happens. But it's like, no, actually, I was really upset that you couldn't make it to the event. But I didn't know how to say it. And so I just played it off by just saying, haha, or, just kidding, or it's no worries, or whatever it was. And the other person just took it for face value, since there wasn't that maybe in person or face to face or phone conversation type of interaction. So I feel like sometimes that can be lost a bit, is that you can kind of hide, and I guess in a sense, a different way of curating someone's experience of you. And even as we were talking too, I thought about something I say to a lot of my students is, don't compare your worst with someone's best. So as we were talking about comparison, because that's another thing too, is that it's not even just the act of comparing, because as Teresa, you were talking about, this happened from before, but it's also like, what are you comparing? So you're comparing literally someone's highest highs, and then you're comparing that I just woke up like this, I've got crust in my eye. You're comparing that to someone's social media glamour shot. Of course, there's not going to be any type of, you can't, that doesn't compare at all. Or even just comparing, oh, that person seems so confident, and here I am feeling depressed or anxious. Social media sometimes can magnify those insecurities because you may just assume that someone doesn't struggle because they posted a happy picture of them and you yourself struggle to get out of bed. You may feel just like, oh, well, what's the point? That person obviously has the perfect life, and here I am just feeling bad about myself. So I think it's also in that comparison, what are you comparing to? And is it even on the same level?
Great point.
Yeah. I was also, in just nodding in agreement. I think that what people have been saying has just been so spot on with my thinking and also my experiences as well. I would often say, I'm glad I didn't have to go to high school in this era, or I'm glad I didn't have to be a young person in this time, because the more time that moves away from certain aspects of my life, the more I look back at it with rose-colored glasses. But one of the things that I really get concerned about is the trolling and the bullying on social media.
Excellent.
It's just like relentless, and the way that people, go for the jugular, even in the most benign situation. So we talked about reading the comment section or not reading the comment section. But it can be the most innocuous thing, and then the comments just go left and then left from left. So the trolling and the bullying, those bots that are on social media that, light a match and to the gasoline, to the flame, and just, try to blow stuff up. So I think that that's something also that is very challenging for navigating social media. How do you protect yourself, how do you, do self-care in the midst of this environment where the more inflammatory, the better. So I think that that's another aspect of it that I think can be really, very unsettling. Because although it is online and although it's not person to person in person, words do carry meaning. They hurt, and many a time we find that people are responding to that in ways that harm themselves because of how they have been harmed by interactions on social media. So definitely that trolling and bullying are strong areas of concern for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to another aspect. We want to talk about the consequences. What are some of the consequences of what we've shared here? And I think some very powerful aspects have been shared, both good and bad. What are the consequences of these?
The DSM, the current issue of the DSM, I think is a precursor to where things are going in the field. I think that research is continuing to inform us about how the consequences of negative social media interactions can be far-reaching. They can trigger psychiatric concerns, but there may be things yet named, yet termed, that are still being unearthed and being experienced even now. We think about Facebook changing its name to Meta and the implications of that, and wanting to build virtual worlds that encompass all of our thoughts and dreams and visions for ourselves. So I think that the consequences that we have seen, it's certainly been, especially in the pandemic period, even different from the before time, right? Where we have seen so many young people who have had first and emerging psychiatric concerns that did not happen in the before time. So I think that there are some significant consequences for the social and mental and emotional well-being of people who get pulled into certain aspects of social media interaction that we need to be aware of and mindful of, that we need to have effective ways to assess and to treat.
Yeah.
Maybe explain DSM for those who may not understand. Doc, you started saying.
The DSM is the diagnostic and statistical manual by which clinicians assess, diagnose, and even begin to develop treatment for psychiatric, psychosocial, emotional and behavioral concerns. So it helps us as a guide that's based on statistics and research, clinical study that formulates how groups of symptoms operate together, how they operate over time, and how they're influenced by conditions such as genetics or environment or traumas. So, for example, if someone would say to me that they're having a particular range of symptoms, I may refer to the diagnostic manual to make sure that I'm diagnosing in careful detail between maybe a mood disorder or something else, right? Or even culturally bound, as they call them, psychiatric diagnostic concerns. So it's the manual that's used to help to define and diagnose and begin to treat psychiatric concerns, broadly speaking.
Go ahead. I find that interesting that in this time of the pandemic, or which we're still in, some people want to believe we're post. No, we're not post. We're still in it. Yeah, I'm going for a longer time than what I think we bargained for. But I think that the after effects of this, if we ever do come out of it, which we're praying that we do, I look at the generation of, for example, freshmen that I got, right, that are receiving classes online, right? They haven't had that culture of college, being in college, and how they struggle with the in-person relationships, because they had prom online, graduation online, senior year online, and freshman year online, and it seems to be going longer, right? What are going to be the mental effects of that? I think we don't understand it. I think about seniors who live by themselves. I know my mother lives by herself, and how hard it was for her to just go to church online for a year, and then having to now say, no, I need to go to church, even if it's just me alone sitting in the building, and how will that translate later on? I think that we're not there yet to see it, but there will be some type of consequence on us socially, mentally, because of this period that we're in.
Absolutely. And I don't think we have to wait for the after to recognize that there's things happening right now where you're already seeing differences in how people approach problems, how they understand conversations, how they even think about work and life, that there won't necessarily be an after. I mean, this during is lasting longer and longer. And if we are waiting for after to start to recognize or try to identify problems, we're waiting too long. I think that part of what Dr. Denham's comment was before, which is why I asked her to define the DSM. And what she meant by that was that there are things that do not get a name until someone tags them and says, this is what this is called. Yeah. And people will say, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was called. Mm-hmm. And they go to someone to say, what you have is this. And once you hear the name, then there's already some sense of, okay, I can do something now that I know what this is called. And when things aren't called by anything yet, then it's just the random things you feel. So, for example, the last one we had when we talked about post-traumatic stress disorder, not only been about war veterans, but about traumatic events. And people being able to tag what they're feeling with a traumatic event and say, no, I didn't have to go to war to feel I was feeling this. That's the importance for me of these two last comments, that we need to be vigilant, whatever age we're in looking at the entire picture and recognizing when something is going left. Left is this way. So if you are seeing that someone is not sleeping as well as they used to, not eating in the same way, has difficulty getting up, doesn't find pleasure in, I mean, there's things where you say you have 3 out of 5 out of what, just be vigilant and not just say it's because of the pandemic. they'll get over it. We need to pay attention to these things. And just because social media is a place where people hide doesn't mean we can't search and rescue, because it's something that we need to be watching.
And even for us.
Interpersonal.
Yes.
Yeah, even for us. Shauna, go ahead.
I think another one of the consequences too, and though I don't have any statistics, and this is just brief discussion amongst peers, professionally, where you're hearing interpersonal skills working with your peers. It is. I'm a lefty, so I'm gonna say you see when things go right so fast to the right. Right? I'm just joking. You just see you begin to see it, and I saw it just a little bit once some of the organizations, at least here in New York City, began to open up and require that staff start to return in-house. Those people who were hired, and I don't want to give young people a bad rap, but it has been a lot of the younger people coming into the workforce. The interpersonal skills with others, it is difficult. Yeah. And I've seen some peers try to say, what these young people. No, it's not just the young people. It is comprised of a whole lot of things that have brought us to this point, and it's how do we work with it. One, like you said, Dr. T, what we call it. So I think that's one of the consequences that I've heard of late, at least.
Yeah. I was going to say something, but no, go ahead. Then Shauna K, I think you wanted to say something. I wanted to go back to a point. Someone mentioned here that the consequences, I think we're getting some feedback, so maybe someone can turn their device down. One of the other consequences of social media is that kids are going up to class because they're exposed to so much on social media. I actually believe that this is not going to go away, right? So in the past, we also grew up too fast because of something. Every generation grew up too fast because we always tag something as a reason for us being fast, right? But this is not going to go away. In fact, thank you for that point, Shauna K, about the meta and the dreams and whatnot, which is very scary, right? People need to be very concerned about that level, because I think now you're getting into something that is now beyond my choice. Now it's going to be basically kind of your choice as to what I need to do. But then what is our choice as parents, teachers, educators? And we mentioned that before. Since we know that this is a reality, and yes, the exposure is there, kids can go and see anything, right? What do we do? I think that is more my concern, because you're not going to be able to shut down social media. You're not going to be able to say to them, you can't use social media. I think we see that already. So what do you do as a parent, a guardian? We talked about having those conversations and being open-minded. Is there anything else that we should be doing with this regard? And even being self-aware as to how do we deal with the extreme exposure?
Well, I think it depends on the age of the person you're kind of talking about. Mm-hmm. So for younger adolescents, so I think one thing that's important to kind of recognize is that people under the age of 10 at the lowest limit shouldn't be on social media. So I think that's one thing that's important to.
Can you say that again? Because I have been seeing a lot of
there's a lot of young people little people on social media.
That's how we comfort them. That's how we keep them quiet.
So I mean, 10 is the absolute lowest limit. I like to remind people it is actually illegal to have your own social media account before 13. But separate and apart from that, definitely there's not the ability in childhood to be able to differentiate reality from fiction at all. And so, utilizing social media as a child is definitely not a good plan developmentally. But definitely for people who are kind of in that early adolescence, so kind of the pre-15 age range, definitely there should be, you, as a parent, you should have access to all of their social media accounts. Now, people can make, young people can make shadow accounts, like, I mean, and you're never going to stay up on the technology as good as them, but there should be that knowledge that there is accountability, the same way that there's knowledge that there's accountability for everything else you expect your child to do. I think also setting some ground rules, around how you expect social media to be used, what times you don't expect social media to be used, where social media should be used and where it should not be used. So, the American Academy of Pediatrics is a very nice little media guidebook for families where you can create a media contract and you can kind of go through all of those parameters if that's something you're uncertain about. But, maybe you're agreeing that, social media can't be used at the dinner table, or media can't be used, media shouldn't be used by anybody within an hour of bedtime. I frequently encourage all families to have a place where phones, tablets, iPads, all of those things go in the evening, because you don't get good quality sleep if you're getting notifications and things like that through. Obviously there are reasons that some of us have to keep devices near us, but really being mindful about, do you really need the device, or, can you put in, there's lots of features. So for instance, my phone goes to do not disturb at a certain point every night, but it's set, if someone calls me 3 times in 15 minutes, then, then it will ring, it will wake me up. And that's reasonable because, all of the people that I worry about at the end of the day, there is nothing I can do for them in that immediate moment. So 15 minutes is not going to cause any change in the outcome. So I think it's just really important for us to be cognizant of kind of putting those boundaries around it. Once a young person's at 15, we want to start, encouraging their ability to make autonomous choices, because they will no longer be under our immediate care forever. And so we want that practice to happen while they're in a place where there's supervision. But that's why those rules and boundaries are so important from beforehand, because then when those rules and boundaries, when choices are made that are not aligned with that, then there's a very clear way to say, well, this is the consequence of that. And so I think that, that's different. And then, definitely when you're dealing with a young adult, then your role kind of changes from, you kind of rolls into an advisory type role. Right. And so, really helping people understand where is what they're doing, how does it align or not align with the values they've created for themselves and the goals that they have for themselves.
Right. Great points. I want to share something here. Sorry, it was Emily. She shared that in college, she was shamed online on a college secrets page, which caused her to drop out of college, among other reasons. Words hurt. I would like us to speak to that, because I see that happening to a lot of young women, right? People say things online. There's the bullying that Shauna K talked about. How do we help someone who has been shamed, bullied online? What can we say to them?
Well, I guess first, hopefully they...
Please,
sorry,
Allison,
was someone saying something? Okay,
go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like first, hopefully you've developed that relationship where they feel comfortable talking to you about that, because I think sometimes whenever there's shame involved or those situations, it can be really easy to just keep it to yourself or feel embarrassed or just kind of slink away, unfortunately. And I think really if we're dealing with, because I think that that's happened to some of my students, actually, like they've been in WhatsApp groups, they've been in all of those college pages that have, those sometimes those toxic posts. And I think it's really kind of affirming that affirming them and affirming that it's not always just about them, because sometimes you can really think that someone's words are really about you. And of course they are to a certain extent, like someone saying something negative against you, but oftentimes it's like what that person is dealing with, they're sometimes projecting onto you, or they're just saying that, you're a bad person or this or that. And they just want to tear someone down. Like one of my students shared about how she got a very good grade in her group chat, and other people in the group chat were basically like, why are you sharing this here? I got a good grade too. And then she just felt really dejected and felt like, okay, well, I don't even want to share anymore because, that's not okay. And eventually she left the group chat, but that was because she also saw the value in herself, that was an an environment that she really needed to be in. And I think that she was able to do that just from talking and having mentors and guides who are kind of feeding that back into her of like, you deserve better than that group of people.
All right. Shanika, you were saying something.
Yeah, I wanted to say to Emily, I'm really sorry for what you experienced. And I also commend you for the fact that you were able to make that comment today, because being able to state it as you did and so clearly shows a measure of healing, a measure of understanding that your worth is not defined by what those people did to you. And so I just want to commend you also for being able to state that. I'm sure that there are others who may have had similar experiences, and by hearing your comment, can know that they can come through on the other side as well. With things like this, with posts like these, those thumb thugs and keyboard killers, they're able to make their comments and then they're moving on to the next thing, right? Because the scandal of the moment is simply that. But the fact of the matter is, while they're looking for the next person to tear down, you're still left with those scars because it happened to you. So and that's another thing about social media, right? The immediacy of that gratification, of that interaction, does not often reveal the impact, the lasting impact that it may have on someone. So yes, it's very important for us to realize that, we have the opportunity to put our boundaries in place. And I'm glad, Emily, that you were able to put those boundaries in place to the point where you're able now to say that, what stopped me then is not stopping me now. And the fact that you were able to post it shows that the power of what happened then, while it was very real then, has changed in terms of how it shows up in your life. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I hope that that does give the rest of us pause when we get ready to, type that thing that sounds so catchy and so quirky and so potentially inflammatory, that it does have consequences and can have lasting effects on those it's aimed towards, or those who may come afterwards and read it. So it's very important for us to keep those things in mind. I think someone mentioned the term principles before, and it's certainly one of those principles. Words have consequences and can be very hurtful.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Emily. We are coming down and we want to talk about taming the social media beast. So I'm going to ask each one of our guests to maybe give us 2 or 3 things that you think we can do. And I know Lorna shared some very practical things that really not only parents, all of us need to be doing, but 2 or 3 things that you believe we should be doing to be able to tame, because it's easy to get addicted to the overposting, to the oversharing, to the constantly being there all day. What can we do to tame this? And I see Teresa, you wanted to say something.
No, I was doing hand movements to what you were saying.
Okay.
It can go away from you. That's what I was saying.
Who would like to be first? Dr. Allison, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think in terms of taming the social media beast, I think someone mentioned before self-awareness, and I feel like that's usually the answer to a lot of different issues, even if we don't always like to admit that. But I think really taking the time to ask yourself, like, why am I on social media, or not even why am I on social media broadly, but in this moment, like, what am I feeling? Because sometimes, there are those times we just want to post on social media, update, and just move on, and that's fine. So I'm not saying to not do that at all. But are we posting because we're bored, or we're lonely, or we're nervous? So I think just really taking a pause to be able to just think about, what am I feeling right now? And am I somehow using social media to really address that? So even, I know sometimes people might be out in a situation and they start to feel really anxious, and they're like, oh, well, I don't really know anyone at this event. And then you take out your phone and you're kind of like, okay, let me seem like I'm just leaning on the wall, looking really cool, just on my phone doing something. But you're not really, I guess, in a way, you're trying to regulate your emotions and the nervousness and anxiousness or anxiety that you're feeling. But what are some other ways that you may be able to do that besides turning to social media, might you want to engage in some type of mindfulness practice in the moment and really recognize that. So yeah, I think that's one thing to consider when trying to tame social media usage.
Yeah, good point. The why.
I
The
would
why
like
drives
to.
everything. Go ahead, Shauna K. Sorry, I was just saying the why drives everything we do. So if we can zero into the why, it will help out. Go ahead, Shauna K.
I want to also just make a plug for using actually an app on your phone that shows you just what your actual social media usage is, how many hours you're actually on your device. The first time I did that, it was mind blowing. I could not believe that I had spent that amount of time on Beyonce's internet. You know, they talk about Beyonce and us having the same 24 hours. And I'm like, Beyonce's not on the internet this much. So take a practical, cold, hard look at what your usage actually is. And, you know, it can be a lot like that refrigerator door where you open it, you look in, you close it, you open it back, nothing has changed, close it, you open it back, no new food has emerged. So you have to be very mindful again about why it is that you're spending that much time and what it is that you're looking for. And use that as a guide to see if there are any adjustments that you care to make. And then, you know, step by step, do that so that you're able to disconnect, to reconnect in a way that's adaptive and you know, more functional.
Yeah. Good advice.
And then I would say just thinking about, are there times you can, you know, essentially do social media fast, you know, for lack of a better term. So you're kind of decided that you're not going to be on social media for a period of time. You know, kind of seeing, you know, again, kind of recognizing the world end to end. You still have your same friends. People can check on you in other ways. So I think that that can be really helpful, again, in kind of being mindful of why we're using it, what we're using it for, and the amount of time it's taking up in life. And then just kind of thinking through, another thing that I think is really helpful is just turning off notifications. So that's something that in general, I keep my notifications off on my phone kind of at all times. One, your battery lasts a lot longer, but two, you know, it just, part of that, you know, they've shown that social media is an addiction, and part of the addiction is the positive feedback that you get every time you post something, every time someone comments on it, every time someone likes, and the feedback loop happens because you get the notification. And so if you aren't getting the notifications, it kills some of that feedback loop. I mean, obviously, if you open it, then that's there. I've heard some people also suggest, I've never tried it, but I can see why that would work as well. Instead of accessing it through your phone, only be able to access your social media through a computer. And so then again, if you don't have the app on your phone, it really diminishes the amount of times that you're checking. So that mindless checking that happens just because, you know, bored, you know, what else is there to do? You can find other things to do that are more productive. As Dr. Denham said, on Beyonce's internet. And then Beyonce's internet. Yeah.
The computer stuff works. I've done that. Because you're not going to be opening your computer every minute to check. Absolutely. But great advice. I want to just, there are a couple of questions here that I'm just going to throw them out to see what your thoughts are before we end the segment. Leadership Lady Live says, sometimes there are young people who have never been taught about the consequences of their words. Is there a place to address that? It's such a tricky question.
Sometimes there are natural consequences, right? That come into play where that will teach in a way that our didactic approach may never. Right. So I think that there's room for that. And also, you know, and we talked about the influence of the peer at certain stages of our development. Certainly, we know that happens also in ways that definitely bring their own lessons as well. So a lot of times there are natural consequences, and I think we do need to leave room for that as well, because there may be, you know, things that we're trying to say that don't land the same way as the natural consequence. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. Any more thoughts? Yeah.
I think there still needs to be an emphasis on the role of parenting. I think that sometimes we don't say enough of it. I was talking to someone today and said that in many TV shows here in the US, children are the smart ones, the solvers, and parents are usually made fun of as inadequate and geeky and almost stupid. And the child is the one that's coming up with these, fantastic ways of making fun of the parents, and it becomes sort of a, feeling that they can do that at home as well. So parents need, and I saw some comments in the chat to that effect. Parents need to parent. Parents need to parent. I mean, aside from everything else that we can say, parents need to lay the ground rules and follow through. And children need to understand that they're not the parents and that we're not on equal ground, even though it may feel uncomfortable. You don't apply rules to me, I apply the rules to you. And we may not like to have that sort of relationship, but they need it. And this applies to social media, use of devices, coming in at what hours, talking back to me, what's allowed at the table, everything. Because if we don't do that as parents, they suffer and we suffer. And I have not used in all of this that I've said a single comment about punishment. None of that. It's just parenting.
Right.
And I think that we need to apply being parents even in this world of social media. It's not another universe. The same thing you would not allow walking in through your door, you don't allow on the phone. That includes violence and cursing and whatever it is you have. I'm not saying whatever it is you have as rules to come into your house, things you don't do. Same thing applies to social media, and have that conversation and parents. I think that we need to do that.
I know of several instances where parents turn to the school to solve issues that started over social media and outside of school. Schools don't have all the answers, so parents do need help. Yeah, these are tricky times. These are very complicated times and compounded by lack of knowledge. So it is important that we all get as much information and as knowledge. And parents, not because we're older, that's not an excuse for not knowing what's out there. We need to know. We need to get in there, find out, know, ask questions, learn, listen. It is critical for us. I want to allow Shonda and Tricia to affirm our guest while I screen some of the thank yous from the guests, and then I'll affirm them also. So Tricia and Shonda, take it away.
Thank you so much. I mean, this topic is relevant for everybody at every age. And then having three guests like yourselves who are experts in the field, but who started out by saying your own journey with it and how you are able to manage it for yourselves made it even more important for those of us who are here learning to know that this isn't something that you're just saying for everybody else, but that you actually live it, experience it, and have found ways of dealing with it in your personal lives and also use it in your professional lives. So thank you.
Ladies, I'd like to say thank you for committing your time to this space that's so valuable to not only us, but to our viewers and those who have the opportunity to gain access to social media. So thank you for committing your time to just that, but adding some relative information that we can use in real time to help us navigate this world that we can't do without right now. We won't be able to get away from because it is our present, not just our future. So I thank you for sharing your knowledge, your tips, your thoughts. It gave me a lot of insight too, working with a lot of young people on maybe different ways of approaching them when it comes to, what it is that they're doing, the questions they're asking. So I appreciate it, and your expertise is so valued here. So thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Shauna K, Dr. Lona, and Dr. Allison. This is not our usual pink room. You've been with us before, but I think that the critical part of this conversation is it seemed like a sobering conversation, but it is sobering in a way, because there's a lot of lack of awareness that exists around social media, and there's a lot of blaming because of social media. This is happening in society. But then how do we take responsibility, and how do we become accountable? And I love the fact that all three of you brought some not only salient, important points, but you also brought practical advice. Because social media is not only a problem for young people, it's a problem for even adults, right? And you see it on your feeds. You see people are there all day, and you wonder, wow, the time that is spent. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm actually seeing some of the comments coming from all over the world, because we have members all over the world, and they're also expressing their thank yous. We want to thank you for this, for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to come and really educate us, and to really allow us to view this matter in an extended way, and not just social media is bad or good, but what can we do with what we have, because it's not going anywhere. So thank you so much, Dr. Allison, Dr. Lona, Dr. Shauna K. We appreciate the time, and I'm sure that for times to come, while I'm reading here, people are going to be able to share and speak with more wisdom when it comes to this topic. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go into our segment of
self-care,
community care with Dr. Sean, with Dr. Tris.
So I wanted to talk about, just very briefly, about listening to your body, and as part even of the community care checklist, because, and especially when we talk about social media, we may be pushing ourselves past our own body's capacity to respond. We know when we are feeling more tired than usual, when we're feeling hungry, and we are pushing even more because we want to accomplish that goal or reach to that space. And then the consequences may be worse than not getting to the goal. There are worse things than not getting to a goal. And if your body is saying, I'm tired, I need to sleep, I need to walk a little bit, I need to stand up, it's important to listen and to do it, because there may come a point where it may stop talking. Like how you have maybe as a child or an employee, that you go to somebody and you are voicing your concerns, are trying to ask questions, and you're never getting a response or an answer until you stop asking because you're not getting any response. The same thing can happen with our bodies. There can be a point where, after speaking to us and not being listened to, there comes a point where it stops talking. And the next thing you experience is the consequence of not listening. So, one of the best ways of making sure that we are there for our community, to take care of others in our community, is to make sure that we are listening to our own bodies and taking care of ourselves. And if we haven't done it for a while, take some time to just take a step back, be in quietness, and reset. Whether that for you means drinking only water, instead of drinking juices, eating only fruit for some days, making sure that you sleep longer than you usually sleep. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, I'm not very good at sleeping. Whatever it is you need to do to listen to what your body is telling you and be able to be aligned with what it takes for you to be at your best, then do that so you can listen and then continue to be doing what you are here on earth to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tricia. We're going to share with you our next 2 weeks. We've had to do some little adjustments. So we're starting with the back and going forward. On December 18th, we're going to be talking about Africa, the motherland. And we're bringing 2 sisters in to talk. One will be talking about Nigeria. You've heard from Ike before, and Nazira is new to the platform. She'll be talking about Ghana. Our topic is define the single story about Africa. And why do we think that's important, Tricia and Shonda?
Well, first of all, I'm tired of hearing people saying they're going to travel to the country of Africa like it's one country and not an entire continent. So even if it's just for like basic knowledge that you should have, if you call yourself a traveler on social media again, and then you're saying, which countries do you want to go to? I want to go to Africa. That's the problem. You need to. That's one of the reasons why.
Love it, Tricia. Love it. Love it. On point.
Yeah, I think she just summed it up. I don't think we can't come after that, Dr. T.
No, we can't. That's it. And on December 4th, we will be having these fantastic ladies. We know that we had said the 27th, but it's Thanksgiving weekend. People are going out with family, doing stuff. So we'll respect that. We'll come back on December 4th. And we have Dr. Tika Ann Haynes from Mary Kay. She's a national director. And Lachelle Thornhill Booth, who is the owner and the creator of Sugar Crush Girl Petite Confections, and Jewel Jordan, who owns Jewel's Vintage Closet, and also along with her husband owns this catering business, which is R&J Cuisine. The food is delicious. So we're going to bring them in, and we're going to be talking about daring women in business for themselves. And you know that during this time, a lot of people have the Great Resignation, and people are starting businesses for themselves. We want to hear from these ladies who have been doing business for themselves and see in what ways we may learn from them and perhaps do the same thing. So we want to say goodbye to everyone. It was fantastic being here. And this edition of Pink Room needs to be rewatched.
Yes.
There's a lot that has been shared here. There's a lot of wisdom that was deposited here by these fantastic ladies, Dr. Shauna Kay, Dr. Luna, and Dr. Allison. We need to rewatch it, and not only rewatch it for ourselves, but share it with someone. Share it with someone. Share it with your older folk and your younger folk, because there's enough value here that we need to revisit and look at. And with that, we say
goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you next time.
See you.
And we'll see you next time in the Pink Room.
The Pink Room is a produced resource of For Real Women International, Inc., a non-profit organization with headquarters in New York and affiliates in the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The views expressed here by hostesses and guests do not necessarily represent the philosophy of For Real Women International, its affiliates, members, and board of directors.